Hi there, welcome back to Northlight Photographic Workshops, and welcome to World Cyanotype Day, if it is in fact September 30th, 2023. I decided to do this video a couple weeks back. It's getting released today, and I'm doing it in conjunction with Hahnemühle this time. And Hahnemühle has been very supportive of our community over the years, and I decided that I would do this a cyanotype demonstration, but I would do it with Hahnemühle's paper. And I'm going to do it with the very fine Hahnemühle Platinum Rag, as well as the Sumi-E paper, which is one of their fine artist papers. It's an acid-free paper, and it, among other things, is very, very beautiful cyanotype paper. And so I thought that I would use that today, and in celebration of the day when all of us are going to be out making cyanotypes, theoretically. Anyhow, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put these aside because I already have some paper cut up. Now, as I was mentioning, I'm going to do it both on the Hahnemühle Platinum Rag, of which this is right now. It's about a 180 GSM paper, kind of a heavy paper. It's fantastic. It's kind of an overall alternative process paper that they've created for us. And it really works great with platinum and palladium, with calotype, with cyanotype, with salt printing, which I've been using it a lot for lately. It's just a fantastic all-around paper. For the palladium process, which is a very acidic process, you always have to acidify papers from these days, which are made completely acid-free. It's because they're loaded with different buffers, and those buffers tend to make it not very conducive to the platinum and palladium process, and therefore a paper like this is priceless for us as well, because it's pretty much made for the process. You don't have to treat it and acidify it beforehand. Now, the other paper that I'm going to be using is their Sumi-E paper, which is an extremely beautiful paper. It tends to be a very difficult paper to use for processes where you have to, basically a process such as platinum and palladium, where it's quite costly to make your emulsions, because it very much absorbs up the emulsions of the paper, of the coatings that we are using. But it's hard to get around the fact that it's just a beautiful paper. It's very light. It's got a very kind of a coarse weave to it, and it's sort of translucent in a way, so that when you print on it, it almost seems as if it can be lit from within. It's a very beautiful paper. However, as I said, it's very difficult to print on with some of the more traditional processes that we use. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do later in the video is I'm going to show you how I coat this for cyanotype. Now, as I said, very difficult paper to coat, but I've kind of worked up a pretty good technique that I think will help. So, to begin with, we're going to work with the platinum rag, and what I've done is I've created a couple of negatives already that will be very conducive to the different paper. Now, this negative here, which is a very subtle, kind of a foggy image of some trees with some motion earlier this summer, I think will be a very nice, delicate image for the Sumi-E paper. So I'm going to print that one next. But what I'm going to do first is work, as I said, on the Hahnemühle Platinum Rag. And for this, I've got a little bit more of a, traditional photograph. It's of a lighthouse that I photographed up in Iceland several years ago now, and I've never done anything with it. But in looking through my archives, it just looked like an image that would be very nice with this process. So I thought that I would make this negative for this paper specifically. So what I'm going to do is coat both of these to begin with. Now, as I say, I'm going to start out with the platinum rag. If you'll stick with me and watch how I coat the Sumi-E, it may give you some really good ideas as far as coating that paper, which can be very difficult to coat with a brush. I do it with a roller and with some plexiglass, but I'll get to that next. What I'm going to do first is wet my brush. I like to wet my brush to keep it saturated so that the coatings that I'm putting down don't get absorbed in the brush. They get more pushed on the surface. So, and the other thing that I want to do is I want to kind of size this for the negative that I'm going to be using. So, as you can see, let me grab a piece of pencil here. Now, I would normally do this on the light table, but I don't think that I need to right now. What I'm going to do is just put the negative pretty much where it will be. And I'm just going to hold the pencil there. I'm going to make a little mark. Make another little mark. Make another little mark. And the final one in this corner. Okay. So I'm going to hang the negative up. I never want the negative anywhere near where I'm going to have any liquids because you can destroy the negative very easily. So there, I've got that up there. Now what I'm going to do is go off camera and wet the brush first, and I'll be right back. Now I always like to wet the brush and then I just very lightly dab it off here. Now the process that I'm going to be using here, for the cyanotype is the new process. It's the process which has, let's see, ferric ammonium oxalate as well as a little bit of ammonium dichromate in it. Now I like to use this now pretty much all the time because it's such a wide range of exposure scale in there. It makes a very beautiful print. And what I found is that it's very close in exposure scale to the salt printing process. And therefore, the curve that I've built for salt for making the negatives works quite well with this process. Now I will be in the future making another video about doing a curve specifically for the new cyanotype process. But for now, I'm just going to be using my salt curve for this because, as I said, it works out really well. So this is the new cyanotype process, and the way that you use this is rather than having the one-to-one mixture of the original process, I'll pour out a little bit of it here. And then what I have is an ammonium citrate, a 40% ammonium citrate formula that I use as a clearing agent that helps to clear the print afterward. I put a couple of drops of that in there and swirl it around and get it ready to put on my paper here. Now, I'm going to bring this over here a little bit so that you can see a little better. Now, this paper handles coating very well. It's really a marvelous paper to coat. And what I will be doing is just using a brush for this. I don't like to use a coating rod, although some people do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to constrain it into the area where I've put the dots on there, and rather than just coating the whole piece of paper. And I'll just be very careful, much as when I coat a platinum and palladium print, you know, just to get very even coating. And I'll go both ways. I'll use one side of the brush, and then I'll let it settle in when I'm rinsing the brush and rinsing out my shot glass, which I do as part of my workflow. That helps it to settle into the paper a little bit before I put it off on the rack to dry, okay? And then what I'm going to do after that is move on to the next piece of paper. So let's do this right now. I'm going to pour out a little bit of the solution here, and then I'm just going to be very carefully brushing it in, not to get too sloppy because I don't want to get crazy with it. What I'm going to do is just draw to my corners where I've put my brush, my pencil mark, and try to kind of keep it constrained within that so that I don't have real sloppy borders on my prints. So there we go. Now that I've got that, I like to just kind of keep coating it very nicely across the surface. Until I get a really nice even coat so I don't see any brush strokes. There we go. Now, that looks good, nice and even. Now I'm going to go rinse off my brush, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to put this over onto my drying rack, and we're going to go on to the next paper. Now, as you can see, this has got a really nice coat on here. I'm going to put this off on the side, kind of a, you know, an area that's kind of dimmed light. and I'm going to let that dry. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to be moving on to the Sumi-E paper. But I have a completely different way of coating this, because if I just sat here and I started putting it on with the brush like I just showed you, it would be very difficult. I would have a very hard time getting an even coating. I'd get a lot of streaks and that kind of thing, no matter what the size brush is. Now that's just me. Perhaps you can try a different way and find your own way to do this, but the way that I've found to do this is to use pieces of plexiglass. Now I have 2 sheets here that I'll lay out. On one sheet, I'm going to put my paper, and on the other sheet, I'm going to put my solution. Now another thing that I like to use for this process is a roller. Now these rollers, I get them at Home Depot or any hardware store. I use these a lot for my gum bichromate coatings as well, where I can roll the surface on, roll it onto the surface. Now it works really well this way. So this I highly advise you getting as well. We're going to put this here off to the side. I'm going to get my sensitizer ready to go. All right. Now I've got quite a bit there. I like to err on the side of a little bit too much. Put a couple of drops of my sensitizer in there and mix it up and get it ready to go. Set it over here. Now, my roller I like to get wet, so I'm going to get it wet and then I'm going to squeeze it out and just kind of use it damp, for the same reason that I do with the brush. I want it to be somewhat saturated so it's not going to absorb all of the solution from my coating inside of the sponge brush. All right, so let me get that wet. Now another thing that I will do is once I've got it wet, I will squeegee it out onto a piece of paper towel like this and kind of clean off or get off the excess water. Now the reason I use paper towel and not a rag or something is that I don't want any fibers to get on there that I'm going to then again transmit into the print. So now I'm going to get my Sumi-E paper here. Now as you can see, and I showed you before, it's a very delicate paper. And what I'm going to do is lay that out. Well, I'm not going to do that yet. This is where actually my trick comes in. Because I want this paper to lay as flat as possible, I'm going to take and use a common spray bottle. And I've got some distilled water in here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to very evenly spray this piece of plexiglass so that it will be a little bit damp, so that it will adhere this paper to it very easily. So now it doesn't have to be super dry or anything. I can get it quite wet. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the paper down and touch it with a curling action like this, so that the center starts first, and then I'm going to basically even it off to the edges like this. All right, now once I get that this way, now I can take and start rolling on here. Now what I'm going to do is pour out my solution. I'm going to pick it up on the roller, and then I'm going to start in the center of the paper, as you can see, and I'm going to roll out to the edge. Don't be going back and forth. Just start in the center and roll out to the edge. Now as it picks up the solution, the paper will flatten out to the plexiglass, and it'll give you a nice, smooth, even coating without any wrinkles, okay? That's really important. So there. You can see how I am doing that. Now, from the center, I go out again. Now, I can use a little bit more here. And I do this until I get a nice kind of even greenish yellow coating on there. Don't be afraid to use more solution than what you think you need. There we go. And you roll out any wrinkles that might show up in there. Okay? Now again, I'm being very careful not to get my fingers in the solution. It's not that dangerous. You're just going to want to wash your fingers afterward. I've got this nice and rolled out real evenly, and it's nice and flat. There aren't any wrinkles in there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel it up from the corners and very carefully take it over to the drying rack, and I'm going to put it there to dry with the other one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wait for everything to dry nicely, and then we're going to come back and we're going to make a print, and you're going to see how this all works out in the end, all right? So stick with me. Thanks. We're going to peel this up off here very carefully. As you can see, I've got a really nice coating on there. Now I'm going to very carefully put this over onto a drying screen. And once those two are dry, we're going to come back and make the prints. So right now I'm going to clean up all of my surfaces and get ready for the next step, okay? Stick with me. Now, this one is dry, and you want to be really careful at this point that it is dry before you put your negative on here, because you don't want to destroy your negative. Now, the other thing is that you could use a hairdryer as well. But I don't like to do that too often, you know, unless I'm running a workshop where we have to keep moving along. I like to let it naturally dry. I don't know, I think that the heat can kind of sometimes add to some inconsistencies in the emulsion, that kind of thing. Anyway, so I've got it set to go. This is going to be, this is again the Hahnemühle Platinum Rag. So what I'm going to do is use the Lighthouse negative, and I'm going to put it on here, as you can see, and cover up my coating there. And now we're going to need the print frame. So, and into the print frame it goes. Now once again, a split back print frame, which means that during the process I'll be able to open it up like this and show you where we are in the printing process. So now I'm going to put it into my plate burner for 8 minutes, and I'll come back to you and show you the progress as we go, all right? I'm going to pause my printing here just to show you that you can see that things are starting to turn blue, as they should. Now what I'm going to do is open up the back here, and on this camera you should be able to see where we are in the process here. There you go. You can start to see the image showing up. Now I can close the back up, and I haven't disturbed the negative at all. So I'm going to go back into the plate burner for the rest of the time. Then I'll come out and I'll show you. Okay, so now I'll finish out the exposure in the plate burner. Now what will happen sometimes, especially with this new process, is as you go on in the printing process, although it is a printing out process where it develops as it goes, and you can see how it goes. What will happen is the areas that are getting hit with direct light and aren't blocked out by the negative, very often after a certain amount of time will start to seemingly reverse or solarize, or the blue will start to get brighter or almost like a gray. Don't worry about that when you see that happening in the printing process, because that will come out in the wash, so to speak. Okay. Get this out of here. Now, as you can see, it looks a little anemic. And that's just because, you know, our exposure's gone for a long time, and as I mentioned before, there is that possibility that they will reverse a little bit or solarize a little bit. But let's now drop it into our baths. And this is just a clear water bath right now. And now, as you can see, it's not changing too much, but it is deepening in the blue a little bit, and it will also start to take out the dichromate will start to wash out. So some of that yellow will come out as well. So in this first bath, we're going to see some blue come out and some of the yellow of the dichromate. But the image itself is looking pretty cool. And you'll see what I mean when I switch from this bath and go into the other bath and put in the hydrogen peroxide. Okay. Now, watch what it's going to happen here. We're going to drop it in here, And then let me take a shot. Oh, look at that. Well, silly me. I already had hydrogen peroxide in there from a previous bath, so look what happened there. That's pretty amazing. Now that's pretty much exactly what I wanted. And I'm really, really happy. So what I'm going to do is let this wash out off camera, and it's now time to get with the next piece of paper, as this piece of paper is dry now. So we will make the Sumi-E print next. So stick with me here. Our next exposure, and this is on the Sumi-E. Now you can see how it's still blue on the edges, but it hasn't gone to a dark blue like you would think it normally would. And that's part and parcel because of this being the new cyanotype. I've been noticing it with this. Now, when I pull it out of here, you're going to see we have a pretty good image on there. But once again, it's looking kind of solarized or reversed. So watch what happens now. We're going to go over here into the first wash, which is just regular water. Now, you can see that yellow in there, and that yellow is going to come out. Now this paper is quite delicate, but at the same time, it's very strong. So it's very thin and it seems very flimsy, especially once it gets into the solution. But it is actually quite strong. So don't worry about grabbing it with the tongs and tearing it. Just don't be super, rough with it or anything like that. Now, I know a lot of the dichromate is washed out now, so I'm going to be switching it over. And I do not know where my tongs went, so let me find them. Okay, so I'm going to be very careful with this stuff, even though it's pretty tough. And I'm going to lift it up out of there. Now, I'm going to drop it over into this tray. Let me bring the video up for that right now and make sure we're on that. Yes. Now watch what happens when I drop it in the tray that has some of the hydrogen peroxide in there. Boom. It just goes black, black. Blue, blue. But very dark, which is great. Now this is also because the Sumi-E, it really reacts well. It's because the Sumi-E is so absorptive, and it really absorbs a lot of the solution in there. And I'm using more of it in this. So look at that, wow. It's just stunning. Let me take this video around this way so you can see. Yeah. Okay. Very, very happy. And as you can see, its tonal range is very wide, and therefore this negative being made with a salted paper curve seems to be working really well. All right, I'm going to go off camera to wash this one just like I did the other one. As you can see, this one is up and drying. It's gorgeous. And once this one is done, washed and hung and dry, I'm going to come back with you and we're going to wrap this up, and I'm going to show you what happens when we isolate this. I'm actually going to put it into some mats that I have cut for this. And you'll see that by finally obliterating that big deep blue border, it'll really show kind of that delicate nature of the print. Yeah, it's just beautiful. Now let me hold it up. one last time before. Look at that. Very pleased. So this is the Hahnemühle Sumi-E. And once again, I'll be very careful in washing it. And when I hang it up to dry, I'll be very careful. But again, it's not like tissue paper. It's not going to be tearing on you, so don't be afraid of that. All right, stick with me. I'll be right back. Okay. Everything's done and relatively dry, all washed out. Again, this is the HPR, the lighthouse, which I'm really thrilled with. It's just more than I could have hoped for with this process. You know, I mean, cyanotypes just didn't seem to, they didn't used to be this this wide of an exposure scale on them. So kudos to Mike Ware and this new process, because it's just fantastic. Again, it's really close to salt printing, and I've been able to use my salt printing curve to make this image, and I'm very happy with it. Now, whereas I will build a curve specifically for it, this is working fine in a pinch. Now, this is the paper, the Sumi-E. It's beautiful, as you can feel it, or see, you can't feel. It's quite delicate, but even so, it's fairly strong, and it makes just such a beautiful print. This is a nice little delicate image of the fog and some trees blowing in the wind, but I just love the way it renders on this delicate paper. So another thing that I've done here to show you finishing off an image and how it can benefit to finish one off and mat it actually. Now, a lot of people do like this this border. You know, they do like the overbrush border. I tend to like a clean border, and not always is it easy to mask them out, especially in a process like this where it spends a lot of time wet. There is a way to get rid of that though, and that's by putting it into a mat before you put it into a frame, right? So what I've done is I've had these mats cut. These are custom cut mats. They're 8 plies. They come from Archival Methods, and I use them a lot. And I made these negatives to this specific size so that I could do this. Now I'll show you what it looks like when you finally do get a real nice mat on them. Let's put this in here and get it. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Spectacular. I love it. Check it out. There's nothing like cutting it off and isolating the print itself without all the borders and things. It's quite beautiful. So I'll set that one aside here. Now, the next one we're going to do is I'm going to take the Sumi-E and put it into the mat. Now, because of the white background and the somewhat translucent nature of the paper, it actually almost acts like a giclée in the photo etching process. It sort of gives a nice thin veil, but it allows light to pass through and then reflect back. And it gives it a really nice, delicate, but somewhat three-dimensional quality, as you can see. Isn't that beautiful? Check it out. It's just such a gorgeous paper. Now, I've not tried it with platinum and palladium. I'm not thinking I would have such a successful time with it because of I'm kind of frugal, and you would have to use a lot of palladium to coat that piece of paper. But it would work. And but I'm not going to give it a try. Maybe if one of you out there does, you could let me know. But I do love this. And the other thing is that you can do other things with this. I could now size the paper again, or do another gum layer over it and add some color, which, by the way, I took the liberty of doing while we were off camera. And what I've done is I've added a little bit of yellow and a little bit of red into this one. Now, as you can see, the border's pretty blue, but once again, let me take that and put it here into the mat. Actually, let me put it into this one, because I'll show you side by side on how putting gum over an existing print can really add to its richness and depth. So there you go, look at that. Now it adds a bit more drama, adds some color, obviously some color, but it just adds a richness to it. So as you can see, side by side, they're really quite different. But the cyanotype on its own is quite beautiful, and I'm very happy with it. So with that, let's put those there. Again, I'd like to thank Hahnemühle for their help and their support in everything that we do. Thanks for the paper that I used in this video. They were very kind in their support, and I will leave a link below so that you can purchase some of this paper for yourself. Again, the Sumi-E is very delicate, so when you're coating it, be careful. Like I showed you, on a piece of plexiglass that's been sprayed, it works really well if you go from the center out, and it keeps it nice and flat and keeps any wrinkles out of it, and then you can let it dry and then print it as you would normally. When it's in the solution, when it's in the trays, as you could see, it is delicate, but it is strong enough and it's not going to tear on you. So it's a beautiful paper. Thanks again. Thanks again for watching. I hope you like this. I hope you're having fun on your own day of printing. And if this is World Cyanotype Day and you're watching this, I hope you're doing your own prints. And if you are, I hope you're having fun. So take care of yourselves. Till the next time, bye-bye.